What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of From the Heart. We have a returning guest today, and I am super stoked to dive into this with you, Jordyn. I love this topic, and you know it. So we have Jordyn with Glowing Skin Aesthetics on with us, and she was here a couple of months ago. And Jordyn, when you were here a few months ago, we spoke a bit about your mental health journey. Could we just refresh our audience a little bit on who you are and in more of your story?
Yes, well, I'm Jordyn. I am a mom to two boys, and my whole life I've struggled with ADHD, depression, and anxiety. So I definitely could go on and on about all those topics. And my son, I have a son who's 8 and a son who is 6. And my oldest son, Asher, who's 8, has autism. And it kind of mimics my ADHD a little bit. And so I definitely want to talk about that so that other people can have awareness and kind of feel like they're not alone.
I appreciate that. And I think that this topic, although it's been on the table as of late, as of recent years, we've been talking about it more and more. I still feel like there's just not enough discussion surrounding this topic, normalizing this topic, making moms feel like they have resources in other moms that may be, going through these things and dealing with these things where other moms aren't. So can you take us back to that moment in time, or maybe it was not necessarily one moment, maybe it was a bunch of moments, but can you take us back to where you realized, hey, we're going to have to do something a little bit different with this kiddo, or, we're going to have to look into different resources for this kiddo? Like, when did that start happening for you?
Well, it's funny because now that I'm aware that he has autism, I see it now. When he was a baby, he was fussy, right? He didn't show a lot of emotion as a baby. Also, he wasn't a very good sleeper. He would sleep 2-3 hours, wake up, and it was awful when you're a new mom and you're just like, what? But in my mind, I kept thinking, oh, he will grow out of it. Oh, that's his personality. Oh, he's a Libra, he's a boy, whatever, all these different things, right? And my husband was also not a very good sleeper. And so I remember my mother-in-law just saying, oh, Drew was like that too. They're just big kids. They like to get up and eat. And so I kind of thought, oh, maybe it's just normal. But we really started noticing signs. I was in a mom's group in Chandler, and I had a mom kind of pull me aside. Asher was probably 3 or 4. And he would talk around us and people he knew, but he wouldn't talk when we would get him in a group. And I remember she kind of pulled me aside and she kind of goes, I'm a little worried about Asher. He's not talking. And I remember getting really defensive, like my body language. I'm like, yeah, he does. It's just that, he gets kind of shy around people. And it kind of, he's still to this day like that. He'll kind of go mute if he doesn't know you. But kindergarten was probably the hardest, because we started noticing within the first week or two, he was having meltdowns. He was overstimulated. He kept having to go to a sensory room, which was a quiet room, because he just couldn't handle the bright lights, the noise, the drills, and so definitely in kindergarten was when we found out, and it was really hard getting him diagnosed. Let me tell you. Yeah, it's hard because so many people are trying to get their kids diagnosed that there's so many waiting lists, and I just don't feel like there's enough resources. And so one of my biggest concerns with coming on to this podcast is to kind of hopefully open the doors for more resources for kids, and to make it easier to get them diagnosed, to not be putting parents on a wait list for 9 to 12 months. So it definitely took us that whole kindergarten year to finally get him diagnosed. I ended up having to pull him out of kindergarten early. He's now in a micro school, so he doesn't go to traditional school. Micro school's homeschool. Basically, he goes to a guide's house, and he thrives. He thrives there.
And there's just a handful of kiddos, not to go off on a tangent, but I think it's important for our audience here who might not be familiar with a micro school. So is it just, like 5 or 6 kids, or can you paint that picture a little bit?
Yeah, she has a little bit more this year. It's about 15, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
And they range in ages. So I think the youngest is 4. She'll take pre-K, and then she kind of takes them up now to like 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so she kind of takes a big variety of kids, and they're at different levels. And she does curriculum with them. It's Prenda, basically.
Yep.
You know, because all the curriculums are pretty, I would say it's all relative, but they go at their own pace. So he is able, if he wants to take 10 or 15 minutes on the couch and take a little break, he can. If he is having a day where he can't really get a lot done, he's not focusing, you know, she has him watch, you know, a PBS video or something. Like, she's really open about giving him a weighted blanket or just kind of anything he needs to learn. It's quieter, obviously, there, and there's not a lot of bright lights. It's just better for his sensory.
And he moved there in the 1st grade?
Yes, I took him out early of kindergarten. We were so worried about him. We weren't sure what to do. We tried an autism school, actually. We tried one here in Queen Creek, and it only lasted about 2 days because I'm not a big fan of those schools unless they're severely autistic. Asher's a level 1, so he's verbal, he's potty trained, he can feed himself, you know. He's super smart. It's just that he struggles kind of socially and emotionally. But those autism places were really hard because he was seeing kids in feeding tubes and diapers. It was almost kind of like it felt like a nursing home in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of scaring him a little bit because he wasn't really relating. And I think also one of the kids one day, the second day he was there, was stripping down naked, you know, because he doesn't like clothes, which can be common for some kids who are severe. And I just remember it kind of disturbed him a little bit. And so I kept praying on it. What do I do? What do I do? And finally I came across micro school. One of my good friends, Karen, told me about micro school, that her son was doing it. And it's been a game changer for us.
That's awesome. Can we go back into, you mentioned that your son is a level 1. So
Yes.
for those of us that might not understand the levels and kind of what that means, can you give us a brief explanation of that?
I believe there's 3 levels. I could be wrong because the spectrum, it's a rainbow, right? It's not black and white. You could put 100 kids on the spectrum in one room and they'd all 100 of them have such different symptoms. So it's really difficult that way. But a level 1 basically means that he's high functioning. So they used to call a level 1 Asperger's.
Okay.
They no longer call it Asperger's. It's all just autism spectrum disorder now.
Got you. And so being in the level 1, you had mentioned that he experiences difficulty with social situations. Can you dive into that a little bit more? Like maybe give some examples of the types of situations. I know that you had mentioned in the beginning, if we're in a group setting and he doesn't know you, but are there any other social situations, or even just heading out to Target and picking up a couple of things where he finds that he has some obstacle?
He has a lot of anxiety. And again, I thought he had anxiety, or all these different things kind of ran in my head before autism, but he gets nervous around people he doesn't know because he automatically thinks, what if they're a bad guy? Or he automatically thinks, what if they're a bully, mom? Is that a bully? You know, so it takes him time. You have to kind of be around him, and then he'll warm up, and then he's just a typical loud, rowdy kid. Very much an 8-year-old. He's into a lot of the same things that 8-year-olds are into. He likes Roblox and riding his bike, and he loves the neighbor kids. He's become really good friends with them. But we always have to be careful. Like, we took him to Disneyland. He was very overstimulated. His birthday, I felt so bad. We invited everybody we knew, which was awesome because like 30 people showed up. Aww. It was so much fun, but he was so overwhelmed, I think, just trying to like say hi to everybody. And he kind of shut down for his birthday a little bit, which was difficult. So I think next year we'll have something small. We'll just have a couple friends over the house maybe. But I think, yeah, it's around group. I think it's a lot of the noise too. When he's around a lot of people he doesn't know, he's not really familiar with different noises or even smells he's really sensitive to. So a lot of the sensory stuff that you'll find is very common with people who have autism.
So as a mom knowing this, so I would imagine that it's difficult to avoid social situations, right? And it doesn't sound like you try to. Sounds like he does have his social time.
Mhm.
But is there something that you do to prepare him or you or both of you before going to a holiday party or
Mhm.
before going I don't know if the micro school does field trips or something like that, but let's just say it did, and he was on his way
Mhm.
to a field trip where he's going to be with his peeps, right, that he knows,
Mhm.
but there's a museum or something that they're going to, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, luckily his micro school teacher, Miss Joe, is amazing. Most of the kids have a neurodivergency of sorts, so a lot of them are already autistic, and so she gets it, so she totally understands. Whenever she needs to blow her whistle, Asher's really sensitive to that, so she'll always say, okay, Asher, I'm going to blow the whistle, and he'll go, he'll go like this. And then he also has headphones in the classroom that sometimes he'll put on if he's having a day where he needs them. And then before parties and before we go places, like where did we go? We went to some amusement park the other day too. And I remember we always sit him down and we talk to him and we say, listen, instead of having a meltdown, instead of getting overwhelmed, you just come talk to us and we'll take you to a quiet room. There's usually like a bench or there's a quiet space that we can take him to. And we let him kind of regulate a little bit. We do breathing exercises with him. And we always bring, like, he always has like a stuffed animal or something that he likes to kind of hold on to and stuff. And so we kind of figure out coping skills. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we still have hard days. And that's just going to kind of be the reality of it. And I think accepting that is important. And I'll tell people, sometimes if people are staring or we're just getting to know somebody, I'm very open about, he has autism, like he might get overwhelmed, don't take it personal, if he throws a fit or runs away from you or doesn't look at you. It's kind of one of those things where I find if I'm more open about it, it's easier to advocate. It's easier for him to advocate for himself as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, you had mentioned that I don't remember if it was actually when we were on or if it was before we started the show, but you had mentioned that being neurodivergent yourself, like you can relate with him, like you understand some of the things that he's going through. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Because you don't have autism, correct?
I don't, but it's funny because now that I'm so aware of what autism is, I start to see it everywhere. And I start to honestly think we all have it.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
start to see, quirky things within myself. But I'm definitely more ADHD. I definitely have a harder time staying focused, whereas Asher can really hyper focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both do relate. I want to say that we both get really hard on ourselves because we don't understand things right away. And because of that, we have a tendency to think, oh, there's something wrong with us. And I think that we both struggle kind of with our confidence in that way. And it's really heartbreaking as a mom to see him become so hard on himself and to break down into tears. Like, I'm stupid. He'll have those moments and I have to tell him, no, listen, you're not, your brain works differently. And then, we've talked about, he's so cute. He likes money, right? And we talk about how all the billionaires have autism, whether you like the billionaires or not, like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, all of those people that are super smart and intelligent. They're all on the spectrum, and he likes to tell people that too. And there's a list, and there's people you wouldn't even know, like Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Robin Williams, Daryl Hannah, she's an old actress. Even Courtney Love, even Courtney Love has autism, and so it's funny because you wouldn't know, but a lot of these people have developed coping or they mask really well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that he has a superpower.
Yes, he's incredibly into Legos and building things. He can look at a Lego set and put it together like that, whereas I look at a Lego set and I'm already overwhelmed and I have to walk away. But he's smart. He's always been a smart kid. And I know that if we kind of focus his passions, he's really into like reptiles and lizards. He loves army men. He wants to be, he's funny because he's been into space lately. Like he wants to do an astronaut, and then he realized he could be a military astronaut. So that's kind of where he is heading right now.
Cool.
And you just kind of find their passions. Usually they're really hyper focused on certain things, and his do evolve. they go from police to army to astronaut, but we always just try to kind of educate him on what he's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just becomes very knowledgeable, and it's really cute to see that.
Well, and you just rattled off this whole list of famous people that you mentioned and they all have a superpower. I mean, who's funnier than Robin Williams? No one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's
a comedic genius, and he was in special ed in elementary school, and they would label him as a bad kid because he couldn't sit still and all these different things. And once he kind of found his superpower, which is just making people laugh and just hilarious, and such a good actor. And he became very successful off of that. And so I think that we all have talents. We just all have to kind of dive in there a little bit. And my job as a mom is to guide him. And so, I love that we're talking about this. I love it.
Me too. And I love that you mentioned the emotional side and the, hey, he's really extra hard on himself in these certain situations. And I think that I mentioned to you in our last show that my son has ADHD. And so I totally understand those emotions and those sensitivities and how hard kids really, and even kids that don't have these things still can be really, really hard on themselves. And I think as parents, that is an important thing to focus on and to help them feel settled with themselves, help them love themselves, because as well as I do, having the boys that we have, if they fall out of love with themselves, then that can be really tragic.
Yeah, it is. It is really hard watching kids go through that. And I don't think social media or YouTube or everything else that's going on in the world today is helping at all. Yep. I think it's hard, and I'm going to try to keep my kids off of social media and away from phones and all that stuff for as long as I can. They haven't asked, thank God. But some other kind of tips and tricks that we've done with Asher is we've started taking him to a chiropractor. He goes once a week. And you wouldn't think chiropractic with autism, you wouldn't think, right? They would go together. You think back pain, but because it's the nervous system, it actually kind of helps regulate emotions a little bit, and it helps kind of ease anxiety, and he loves getting it done. So that's kind of one thing. We also have him on an antidepressant. So we have him on like an anxiety, a very small dose. We also do supplements with them. We do fish oils and omega-3s. And magnesium with him. So I'm the kind of mom that I'm open like to everything, right? And I'm trying different things. But yeah, the chiropractor's worked. He is doing speech. He did ABA therapy, and he's also doing OT therapy. So as long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep trying to get him all the help I can.
I love that.
Who doesn't fight for their kids,
Exactly. Are there any other resources out there that are available that moms might not know about, either, in your local area, that you really feel are important, is something that you've tapped into or you're looking to tap into?
My speech therapist yesterday was talking to me about brain mapping. He's like, well, some of the kids that I've worked with have done brain mapping, and it's really kind of worked with how their brain works. And I don't exactly know how it's done because we haven't done it yet, but I'm looking into brain mapping. So that's another one. There's so many support groups out there now. There's a billion different support groups on Facebook, Mom Nation. I'm sure there's plenty of moms on there that have kids that are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then I do ESA with Asher since he's in a micro school. And so ESA is a wealth of information with different vendors that help with autism. He also goes to a therapist for mental health to kind of help with his self-esteem. He goes and play. He thinks he just goes to play, but he's really working with them. So that's another awesome thing that I'm doing with him. And so joining groups and kind of reaching out is so important, because we need each other. We need to lift each other up, because we're going to have hard days.
Yeah.
Whether your kid has autism or not, right? We have hard days. So
100%. It's so true. And I'm glad that you mentioned, it was my last question actually, but you went ahead and answered it, which is great. But I'm glad that you mentioned, connect with a support group, connect with other moms out there. I think that that's so important, not just for the obvious reasons, but just so that you don't feel alone. I mean, how big is that?
It gets really lonely. I remember when I first had my baby Asher and I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was for a couple of years, but I remember just feeling so lonely and so isolated. It's hard until I joined a mom's group and I
Yeah.
started getting out of the house and meeting other people, because sometimes I'm like, is this normal? Is that normal? I don't know. I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like that. And I also had some postpartum depression, so that was also kind of difficult. And so being able to relate and just even talk, it's so helpful. So yeah, my biggest advice is find a good support group. Anybody can reach out to me if they have questions, and I can always point them in the right direction too.
I love that, and I appreciate that, and I know that our
Yeah.
audience members and followers do too. I told you that was my last question, but it really wasn't. So let's talk self-care, because
Yes.
that's really important too. Again, whether you're, a mom that doesn't even have these things, these extras, I think it's really important that self-care be
Mm-hmm.
front and center. And this is something that you do. So tell me a little bit about how what you do benefits other moms. And I know that you can't see yourself, but what
Mm-hmm.
self-care do you do for, just what am I trying to say? Just to be able to arrive, just to be able to show up as your 100% self for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm an esthetician. So I do facials, which all kinds of different facials like microneedling, dermaplaning, chemical peels. I do full body waxing. And I pumpkin peel right now for the winter, which I love.
Nice.
It smells good. So I love to make people feel good about themselves. And I have a friend who's an esthetician, and we trade services.
Yeah.
So we give each other facials and stuff. I think it's important for me to kind of take time to do that as well, and also connect with other estheticians. I love to get massages. I love to read, kind of escape. Sometimes it gets my mind off things because I'm an overthinker. So to be able to read. I'm in a bunco group. I'm in a book club. I love the women that are in there because they're supportive. Some of them have children that are older, and so I can give advice, on what happens when they become teenagers, because I'm nervous about that. So I'm pretty good about putting myself out there, and I love working from home. I love being able to be an esthetician and be flexible because I work around my kids.
Yeah.
So while my kids are in school, I work, and then on the weekends, sometimes I work. But if my kids have like a field trip ever, or if they have a birthday party or an appointment, I put them first. And so I always do kind of what they are doing first, and then I work second. So I'm really thankful and lucky that I'm able to do that. But I absolutely believe in self-care. And sometimes you got to kind of find what you like. My mom loves to go get pedicures. That's her self-care. My husband likes to play video games. That's his self-care. So everybody's different. But I think last time we talked about moving. It's so important to move. It's so important to get exercise. It's important to eat well. And I think that always makes me feel better as well. I joined a boot camp, so.
For sure. I'm so glad that you mentioned. So when we talk about self-care, I think sometimes what comes to mind is, getting a massage, or getting a pedicure, or getting a facial, and where those are forms of self-care. I love that you brought up the fact that it's not like, that's not just it. Spending time on yourself, doing something you want to do, like your bunco group, like connecting with other people, like sitting down and reading a book. That is also self-care. And I think it's important that we be real loud for those in the back for that, because oftentimes I feel like moms get a bit hung up, especially if there are some budget concerns. I feel like they get a bit hung up with, well, I can't do self-care because I don't have the money for it.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Things are expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, even self-care is going for a walk. Putting my headphones on and listening to my favorite music, or going for a silent walk and just listening to nature, because it's so beautiful outside. And there's like the Riparian Preserve, there's Desert Oasis Park, there's all these different beautiful parks and places around that you can go walk for free. So just being alone, even just putting on a movie I like to paint and stuff. I wouldn't say it's free, but I go get some painting stuff, even at Walmart for super cheap. And I'll just paint just because I like to craft and kind of just be colorful. That's also, even window shopping. Like, I don't necessarily want to go spend money, but I just want to go touch things and feel things. And I just want to get out of the house because I'm so sick of being home, right?
Yeah.
So just popping out, getting a coffee and window shopping is something that I love to do. And so those are just like some examples of what's important for self-care. But I do agree. Self-care is so important, especially as moms.
It really truly is.
It
And
really is.
you know, this is a whole other topic for a whole other show, but I feel like we just have that guilt of doing something for ourselves when there's so much to do for everybody else that sort of stops many of us from doing it perpetually, like on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, especially this time of year. You're like, oh, I got to do this for my kid, and I got to go buy my kid this, and I got to take him here and there. But really just kind of trying to slow down a little bit. And you know, now that the kids are getting older, it's getting easier too.
Yeah.
Now that we're out of the diaper stage and the breastfeeding and all that stuff, it's so much easier because they can go out and play with the neighbors for a couple hours, and I can go, you know, pop on some Desperate Housewives or Gilmore Girls or something. So, but you know, I just think that you know, we can all relate as moms. We're always sacrificing. We're always being selfless, and so trying to be more into kind of what we like and what we want to do. I think it's so awesome that we're talking about this.
Totally agree. And thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I was so excited.
Me too. It's always nice to see you. So thank you for coming back. But you're just so open about, like in our last episode, about your own story, what you dealt with in your life. And then being very open right now about being a parent, very open about your son. And I think that is just so helpful beyond words, really, for others out there. And I say this, I swear, every single show, but I feel strongly that just that feeling of I'm not alone, we're in this together, other people are kind of, you know, towing the line with me here, is really important. And that's why I like to bring these stories to light, because if it just makes one mom feel better, if it just helps one mom on one bad day, then I feel like we've done our job here.
I agree. As long as I'm helping at least one person, which I'm hoping I'm helping a lot. And everybody get out there, find a good support group. Don't be afraid to kind of speak up and talk to people and to be open. I think being open and being honest is really kind of healing at the end of the day, because it's really hard to hold that in. Yeah, thank you so much, Katie.
I love it, Jordyn. Thank you. And thank you for being open to others, to contacting you, to, you know, chat about, you know, maybe they're kind of in the beginning stages with their kiddo, going through what you've just described. Thank you for being open for others to contact you about your business and about going to see you for some self-care. So if they were to want to do either one of those things or both, what's the best way for our audience members to get in touch with you?
I am on Facebook and Instagram as Glowing Skin Aesthetics, LLC. And I'm also on Vagaro, which is the booking app. So, and yeah, you can message me anyway. Usually my phone number should be on there as well, my business phone, and my email address if you would like to do that as well. And I would be open to talking to anybody. So I look forward to hearing from people.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And thank you for offering a couple of different ways to get in touch with you, because, you know, some people prefer certain methods of communication over others. So I certainly appreciate that. And we hope to have you back, Jordyn. I know there's another topic in there that we can talk about. I know there is.
Right. I'll be thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, if you want to, actually, you don't have to go far, because I have put Jordyn's last episode here in the show notes. So you can just click on that real quick if you want to check out what Jordyn had to say the last time. If you want to check out any of our previous episodes, we have so many videos over on our YouTube channel. I think it's almost 700 now. So lots of topics. Yeah, lots of mom-friendly stuff over there. Hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at Mom Nation USA. That's our handle. If you prefer to listen podcast style on your favorite podcast platform, do a quick search for Mom Nation Talk Radio. There you will find us. Download, like, notify, all the things, and you will never miss an episode. We will see you the next time we see you, Jordyn.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.